If I understand properly this morning, the thing that I've been asked to do is not necessarily preach, but to just share with you some things from the behind the scenes in my life that have played a critical, shaping, defining role in bringing my life path to where it is. And so I've given this a lot of thought, and frankly, there's been a lot of visiting again, a lot of places in my life, but I've settled on three things that I want to just share with you this morning. Speaking of defining moments, after spending 25 years standing in front of people talking, there have been some unexpected, memorable, defining moments that I wished I had had a rewind button for. And I thought about those as well, breakdowns I would call them, between what I meant to say and what I heard come out of my mouth. And one of those is when I stood in this pulpit on a Sunday morning in camp meeting. And I'm kind of weird, but even if I only have announcements to make, I'm going to do my best, you know? And so I probably got a little bit too wrapped up in trying to make it all great, you know? And so I was giving these announcements, and I got to the 6 o'clock part of the day, and I said, at 6 o'clock tonight, you're all invited to the men and ladies' rooms for prayer. And then while I was standing here like this, talking to the people, in my mind I was thinking, that didn't sound right. That didn't come out right. So I thought, you better correct that. So I looked at everybody and said, men and ladies' restrooms. I heard it when they heard it. And wow, there's some of those times that I'd be embarrassed to tell you what I said, but I just heard it when they heard it, you know? And and I better just stop right there. So one of my goals this morning is to avoid hurting myself and adding to any of those kind of defining moments. In reality, there are thousands of shaping choices and influences that define anyone's life path. It would take a whole lot more than just maybe 20 minutes to talk about those. Some of those happen in moments of correction. When somebody says something to you that hits you like a concrete block in the stomach, about knocks the wind out of you. Might take 3-4 days to get over it. And then you come on the other side of it and say, that was true. I needed that. And it changes your life path from then on. I had a situation like that. Don't have the time to go into it. Happened early on in my career. Thank God my boss was willing to be honest with me. There's other times in your life path when you're ready to throw in the towel. That happened to me one time here many years ago when my father was still alive, and I called my dad. 10 words from my dad. I said, Dad, you know, I think I'm just going to go out and get a job in the city and hang this up. 10 words from my father. I think you know you don't want to do that. All right. Okay. So sometimes the shaping and defining moments are a sentence. But this morning, I've settled on 3 definite points at which something unalterably happened in my life that shaped it from that point on. The single most defining, watershed, critical moment of my life was the day I got saved. Now, I'm going to warn you in advance. Some of these things I am tempted to sort past to other experiences, and I've just had to come back to these for this morning and say, these are the critical points where my life path was really shaped and defined. Just the day before I got saved as a 16-year-old, I was at the altar at our little church. We were in revival with a rather unconventional preacher named Archie Atwell. And if you never met Archie Atwell, you missed a whole chapter in church history because that was interesting. But I'm going to tell you what, of about 5 heroes that I have. Whether you like his style or whatever, he's one of my 5 heroes because God used him at a critical point in my life. Can I just insert quickly? Be careful about criticizing people that you don't like their style and this and that and so forth. I am so glad, thank God, for the times I bit my tongue only to realize later that somebody that I would have criticized played a key role in somebody else's life. And so, that's for what it's worth. So I got saved on Sunday morning, and then on Monday I'm on my way back to work at Bonanza Steakhouse. And since I was 9 years old, I got increasingly hooked on cigarettes, and I was up to probably 2 or 3 packs a day now. And I'm on my way to work, and I resist when I go by the cigarette machine buying any, and then I'm all alone, and I give in. And I go, back in those days, you could just plunk the coins in the machine, buy another pack, and I did it. And that day, that failure found the shepherd going after that stupid sheep and encircling me with his love. And the 2 cigarettes that I smoked out of that pack that night, under the influence of the Holy Spirit, lost their joy. You ought to be thankful when the Holy Spirit strips the joy out of the thing that binds your soul.
That's right.
It lost its joy, and that night, the song says, he came to me when I could not come to where he was. He came to me. I couldn't even stay where he was. I was such a dumb sheep. But what I couldn't do on my own, I know we're a little nervous about irresistible grace, but I'm going to tell you, all the way along my life path is the song, He Came to Me. And He came to me again, and He came to me again, and it was His grace all the way along. And that night while I was doing dishes, spraying the slop off of these plates full of half-eaten food, barely able to stand on the slick floor, and all the activity going on around me that night, I was finally at a point in my life when I was ready to listen by His grace. And while I was spraying the slop off that dishes, I did business with God, and I reached in for the last pack of cigarettes that I ever bought in my life and threw it in that trash can. And then anybody that would have been watching me that night probably would have thought that I'd gone loony or something, because if they would have come by at the right moment, they would have seen Don Davison with a sprayer aiming it down through that little hole into the garbage can and soaking that pack of cigarettes, because I was so done. I burnt bridges that night with that sprayer. And somewhere between that dish machine and the door where they brought in the supplies for the restaurant, I don't know what was going on around me. But I can testify what was going on inside of me, and that was I was responding to the almost irresistible grace of God that wouldn't let me go. Thank God for my conversion. If I've made one mistake at this institution down through the years, and I've made a lot, but one of them is superimposing my experience on you and my testimony on you, and just assuming that you've got that no-so assurance, that you've had a definite, life-changing encounter with Jesus Christ, where you know that you've passed from death unto life and that you're born again. I'm not assuming that anymore. And I'm just telling you today, my heartfelt prayer in sharing this first thing that so deeply affected my life My heartfelt prayer for every single one of you is that you will meet Jesus Christ personally and not just get swept up in the flow of this institution. There comes a point where God singles every single one of us out for personal relationship. And if it hasn't happened yet in your life, I just want to invite you, get your ears open, get your life open, let him speak to you. Number 2, next to my conversion, this next thing, I cannot begin to tell you how unspeakably shaping and wonderful it has been to be blessed with the right companion. Now, somebody has said that experience is the comb that life gives you after you've lost your hair. These days, counseling is urged upon engaged young people, and for good reason. Not back then. You kind of just made the decision and kind of just got into the marriage. I have a theory, and I think it is scientifically supported because at least one other person agrees with me. You won't even know the person you married. I mean, I'm talking about no, the person you married, until about 8 years into the marriage. You won't understand that until you're married 8 years, okay? I mean, you go through enough cycles through that time that you've been through some of life's testing moments. And it's put the core of who you committed your life to the test. And you either at that point are going to say, thank God. Or some of you, I'm not saying that the oh no moments are entirely avoidable, but some of you may have to say at that point, I wish I would have listened. I thank God that long before I had any real clue as to the enormity of impact it was going to have on my life direction, in God's graciousness, he led me by the hand to my wife. And I don't want you to interpret what I'm saying here as just a Valentine's Day card to my wife. I'm saying this because I truly believe that next to your conversion, the most important, impacting decision that you can make that better be surrounded and saturated by prayer. One of the most compelling reasons I can give you for a fully yielded heart to Jesus Christ at your age is because you've got to make a decision like this. Who am I going to commit my life to? And my wife says that before we got married and before she met me, she was praying to be entirely sanctified. And before she even knew what a PR guy was, God used language that she could understand. And she had to settle it in her heart that she was willing to be married to an evangelist. Okay? Pretty close comparison with all the travels that I've done. You know, she didn't want to do that. And she settled it. I'm going, yes, I will. Isn't God good? And now she says, and verified it again to me last night, yes, my calling is to make it possible for you to be at God's Bible School. I thank God for the role, the defining, critical, shaping role that my companion has played in my life. And then finally, would be the dynamic experience of discovering the person who made it possible for me to stand here today and know the Lord. Let me explain that. My father died about 4.5 years ago, and before my father died, I was at the age where I was kind of drilling deeper, almost kind of philosophically into life. And, you know, this whole room here today could be divided up into the takers, the keepers, and the givers. I have a self-effacing confession to make. I came into my career being probably more of a taker than a giver, in the sense that I kind of thought that the nice things in life were like fruit that magically appeared on a tree and you just kind of came by and plucked it and ate it and it'd be there again when you wanted it. Somewhere along the line I realized that every good thing I had, and especially this relationship that I have with Jesus Christ, the reason why I have it is because somebody paid a price. Somebody was a giver. For all my life, I was more focused on my very faithful, wonderful, godly pastor and his wife, who were just the consummate pastor and wife. But then I started drilling deeper, especially when I heard my dad mention, let me say this, my dad was kind of a rather humble guy. He had achieved well in his field, but he never shook some of that Southern Illinois farm boy approach, and he got out some white line notebook paper and wrote some very valuable things to me that, of all the things that I treasure, is some of the life testimonies that my dad wrote out in his own writing on white line notebook paper, and one of them is how Mom and I got saved, I believe it was. And the name Johnny Mason started surfacing in my life. And I'm like, okay, who's this Johnny Mason guy? I've never even heard of this Johnny Mason. Then I started talking with my dad. My dad told me about this time when they were so poor back in about 1948. They had my oldest daughter, my mom was carrying their second child at that time. And they were so poor they didn't own a car, and they were walking to the grocery store in Greenup, Illinois. And some guy pulled over by the side of the road and invited them to ride in his car to the grocery store. And crafty guy, he had something up his sleeve, and on the way to the store, he invites my mom and dad to come to church. Without God, without a church background. He invites my mom and dad to come to church, and that's the beginning point as to why I can stand here today before you and know Jesus Christ. And so that story just kept on eating at me. I mean, beyond just Brother and Sister Gray, my faithful lifelong pastor, this man is truly my hero. And I wanted to connect with him. So I called directory assistants in Decatur, Illinois. By this time he was a successful steel fabricator, and he was a welder at the time that he invited my mom and dad to take that ride with him. His wife answered the phone. I don't blame her for being just a little aloof as I asked if this was the Mason residence, and some strange guy calling in from Cincinnati. And I got Mr. Mason on the phone, and I said, Mr. Mason, this is Don Davison, and I'm Fred Davison's son. And he remembered my dad. I said, it's my understanding that about 12 years before I was born, you gave my mom and dad a ride to the grocery store and invited them to church. And because of that, I know Jesus Christ today. And I'm working for a Bible college over here in Cincinnati. Mr. Mason, I just wanted to call. I just wanted to thank you because you're the reason why I know the Lord. Mr. Mason and I both were crying. We both ended up praying for each other. This 80-some-year-old guy that I just connected with. And I think it was in that phone call that he shared the other side of the story. He said, you know, Don, I ran a welding shop in Greenup. little town. He wasn't a pastor or anything like that, but he was a guy that had a passion for souls. And he said every now and then what I would do is just close up my shop. He said, I know it cost me sales, but he said I would close up my shop, get him a car, and drive around the little town of Greenup and look for people to invite to church. And he said, I know it was a trip like that I pulled over by the side of the road, invited your mom and dad to come to church. I'm here today because of a man that put souls ahead of sales. A guy that incorporated into his life intentionally not just being a taker or even the safety of just being a keeper, but a man that was willing to go out and actually suffer a tangible loss of sales and go out and give. And it was a precious day when I was able to go to the Bloomington Pilgrim Holiness Church, my home church. They invited me back, I think, for my dad's 80th birthday or something, and I was to preach, and Mr. Mason was going to come. It's the first time I was going to be able to lay eyes on my hero. And that church was so small, I knew everybody there, so it was going to be pretty easy to pick out the one I didn't, Brother Johnny Mason. You ever been watching one of those movies where they kind of slow it down to slow motion and everybody just kind of walks slow and it's a surreal moment? Yeah. That's the way it was for me. As I walked up that middle aisle and I saw Mr. Mason, and he walked out of his pew before church and met me. And here this guy that probably, 60 years before that, had invited my mom and dad, he and I embraced. And his tears were so huge on my jacket that when I got to the front of the church, they were still all over the front of my jacket. And can I just share this? When you're reconnecting with the original hero of your life, don't discount it if maybe they're in a little spiritual difficulty now. In fact, it could be the very thing that God will use to reconnect them. Because somebody suggested to me that Mr. Mason had been going through, maybe had gotten cold spiritually at least. And I just wouldn't put it past God that something that Mr. Mason did back in 1948, God in his graciousness and kindness and love allowed 60 years to roll by, and then an independent call from Cincinnati from somebody that reminded him, Mr. Mason, you're the reason. And I could just imagine if he was in spiritual difficulty as he hung up the phone, that perhaps it was a time of reset in his life. My conversion, my companion, and a man who went calling in Greenup are three of the most defining, shaping moments in my life. And I want to just leave you with this challenge today. If you've never really thought, drilled right down to the core of why do I know the Lord? I mean, how was this possible? Will you give that some thought? And then contact that person and elevate them up to hero status in your life. Connect back with them. Be alive to what God's doing in your life. Be responsive to him. I want us to close out this morning lifting all of our hearts in praise to the Lord for the very evident grace of God that's at work in our lives. And I want us to sing, I will praise him. I will praise him. Praise the Lamb for sinners slain. Will you do that with me? Let's stand this morning.
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.